potentially what we're seeing with that particular deal where they're going into the Chinese market. And I mean, we might be giving away a little bit, but as long as we gain more by doing that, then it's a win-win situation.
Jeff, one of the biggest risks apparently is that China has undeveloped supply chains. Is global hort going in too soon?
I don't know enough of the details, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, that's one of the issues, I say, in Russia and in China is rural infrastructure. So yes, you can develop this orchard or this farm and then trying to get the produce to market. I mean, that's one of the biggest problems in lots of undeveloped countries is transport. It's just storing and getting stuff to the supermarket, and there's an awful lot of waste. So, maybe they are a little bit early, who knows? I mean,
here at home, of course, South Canterbury Finance facing a big deadline in 3 weeks' time to come up with a whole bunch more cash. How are you picking that to turn out, James?
Well, they've been thrown a few curveballs, obviously, with the statutory management of Aring Securities. So that's going to be interesting to see how that really plays out. It's hard to know whether they're going to get an investor in. That was made a whole lot more difficult. But a few weeks ago we were talking to Sandy Mayer, and if anyone's going to do it, he will do it.
Jeff, Sandy Meyer has always said that if he had to, he'd like to sell off South Canterbury Finance to somebody as a going concern rather than carving it up. Do you agree with that strategy?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know what's actually in the business at the moment, and if it could be sold to one major player, that would be a lot easier than carving up property loans, car loans, and splitting it up that way. I don't know who the buyer would be in this market, though.
Okay, Allied Farmers is also up against the wall. What's the latest there, James?
Yeah, well, it seems like one of their subsidiaries, Allied Nationwide Finances, has run into a few difficulties with their trustee, and I guess BNZ looking to refinance out of that. So that's sort of thrown a spanner in the works for Allied's capital raising, and a major spanner, to be honest. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. It's still early days to know exactly what the outcome's going to be, but it's going to be difficult.
Of course, they've only got the government-guaranteed deposit up until October, I believe. Is it time, do you think, for the government to pull the pin? Are we just throwing good money after bad?
Well, my understanding was that it's extended until the end of December next year for a certain, for a number of companies. But yeah, I mean, so how do you wean people off? And I mean, at the moment, you're getting people, if you were to go and buy a government bond, you're probably getting 4.8%, and yet you can go to a finance company that's got the government guarantee and you're getting 7.5%. I mean, it doesn't make sense that you'd actually get paid more to have a riskier investment. So until you can get back to neutrality, there's a distortion in the market with the guarantee.
Let's talk Fonterra now for a little bit, gentlemen. Apparently it's moving its headquarters in Germany to Amsterdam. Again, it's going down the R&D track. What can you tell us, James?
Yeah, it sounds like they're moving from Germany into Amsterdam, and it does. The effort is really to try and get into some of the higher value products, into the food ingredient products, specific products that some of the big food companies in Europe are going to use, and that's probably what we've been seeing in other places around the world. It's got to be a good move. Higher value products is what we want to see. It brings more value to New Zealand farmers and to the New Zealand economy. So if that's what they need to do, then it should be the track to go down.
And of course, lately Fonterra's had to deal with DIRA, the Dairy Industry Restructuring Act. You've had some new thoughts, James. Share them with us.
I think it's important to note that that DIRA was put in place for the benefit of farmers, and really what it's trying to do is to regulate the industry that Fonterra plays in. They're trying to make sure that there's some players out there that are going to make sure that Fonterra pay the best milk price that they can. And while it's not great to see more competition in the market and it could erode some of their market power, then really the dairy the changes are only down to 80%, and 80% is still going to be a massive market share for Fonterra. So I think it's important to know that this is for the benefit of farmers, to make sure that they get the best value for the milk that they produce.
Thank you, gentlemen. Up next, we ask our guests where to from here. But first, answer this. What are the top 5 land uses for foreign investors who buy New Zealand land? The answer right after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back to Money Talks. Just before the break, we asked you to name the top 5 land uses for foreign investors who buy New Zealand land. Number 1, sheep, beef and cattle. Number 2, dairy, followed by viticulture, mixed farming and floriculture and nursery. Now, the new milk production season is just kicking off in the North Island. Last month, we saw China's Bright Dairy buy a 51% stake in Synlait Milk for $82 million. In the past 3 years, we've seen Russian, Japanese, and Singapore interests buy up our dairying assets. Is it good news or a foreign raid of our crown jewels? James, what are you picking?
I mean, what's happening here is not is similar to what's happening globally. A lot of developing countries trying to source their food supplies going into other places. New Zealand's obviously pretty developed agricultural economy, and it's a good place for them to buy into some of these assets. I mean, I think we're going to see more of this, or an attempt to see more of this. It just depends on what the government sort of take on this and whether we want to sell some of those assets. And you know, I mean, really, as long as we're able to get more out of it through the long term, then you know, it's not always such a bad thing. But it's a fine line between giving away too much and giving away too little.
But you know, it's going to carry on, and I wonder at what point we need to have a national debate about this, or do we? Is this simply a political decision at the highest levels? Jeff?
I think it's a political decision. I mean, and it's also the public. I mean, if you want to retain more New Zealand ownership of those assets, then we have to have a mechanism for investing. If it's the New Zealand Super Fund or it's KiwiSaver accounts, I mean, that's where the money needs to come from. If you don't want foreign money, the problem with some of the foreign money is really, what are they bringing? They're just bringing a checkbook. They have no expertise in the area. There's no value add apart from the fact that they can fund some of the purchases.
Let's talk about Crayfar Farms. Of course, we're still waiting a decision for that from the Overseas Investment Office. What do you think is going to happen there, James?
Well,
get out the crystal ball.
That's another one. I mean, I guess it comes down, we've seen so much talk about overseas investment into some of our core assets, and it's become an emotional issue, and you know, I guess that's going to be a big one, because the OIO's probably got a pretty difficult decision coming up for them. They've got some, you know, conflicting messages coming from the government, I guess, and a whole lot of messages coming from the public as to they don't want to see this to happen. I mean, I'm not picking it either way because it's too contentious.
Apparently, Natural Dairy is leaving nothing to chance. They continue to lobby behind the scenes at the highest political levels, and they've put out a fact-finding sheet for the people who will make the decisions. One of the things they're saying is that they will pay taxes. Fonterra doesn't. What do you make of that?
It was an interesting angle. I mean, I think one of the concerns with this whole issue of Crayfar Farms is that, who are these people? Where's the money coming from? I mean, it's not like it's a Chinese state-owned organisation that's buying it. And what you lack, I suppose, at this stage is transparency. I mean, who are these people? Where's the money coming from? And I mean, that's the kind of questions we need to ask.
Isn't there a danger that restricting foreigners from buying land here is ultimately going to cramp our land prices?
Well, I think over the past 12 months, then international buyers have come into the market and have actually provided the demand that we needed for the land market. So without them around, then we potentially would have seen land prices fall by even further and fewer sales. So I think you know, we don't want to see too many international buyers, but they have provided some benefits over the past year.
Jeff, where to from here? You're off to New York, you lucky dog.
Oh, I mean, the July month was a great month for most markets. I mean, the US market was up 7.5%, started off last Monday with a 2% gain. It's gone flat since then. But all the news that came out of the US on the corporate front and out of Europe was good news on profits. So companies are making good profits. Part of that is that they've really screwed down their cost. They've laid off staff, and they're at the point where they have to start employing people. So you've got this disconnect between the government numbers coming out saying economic growth is weak, unemployment numbers look poor, and you look at all the corporate profits,
and they're
great. Just like two different stories. But the government numbers always kind of lag, and then they get redone and get updated. So, you know, maybe the company profits is a better indication. Some of the stuff that came out the other week were increased profits for people like FedEx and DHL, the courier companies. So there's, you know, air freight's moving, that their numbers are going up, so that, you know, and I think the transport numbers on domestic airlines has also increased. So things are happening in the background.
Good news for global trade.
Yeah, absolutely.
James, what are you picking over the next 7 days?
I don't know about the next 7 days, but I'm really interested to see how the US economy starts performing. We've seen things tail off a little bit, and they are a good barometer as to what's going to happen around the world. And if things continue to tail off, then we might see things really start to slip, unfortunately. And I think it's going to be quite important. We've seen the US Fed come out with some more moves. They might come out with further moves to ensure that the US economic recovery continues on. But there's no doubt that it has slipped. So I'm going to be watching that pretty closely.
Thanks to my guests, rural economist James Shortall from ASB and Jeff Mathews of Spicers. We'd love to hear your feedback. Drop me a line on our website. And remember to check out my weekly blog. We'll give the last word to those 40 billionaires who've pledged to give away at least 50% of their cash to good causes during their lifetime or after they die. It's the bright idea of Warren Buffett and Bill Gates. Who else? So far, they've signed up Ted Turner, George Lucas, and the founder of eBay. Warren Buffett is giving away 99% of his $47 billion fortune to various good causes. All the billionaires are US-based. Must be something in the water. Wonder if they'd consider bailing out little old New Zealand in our economy. Just a thought. We could show them our gratitude with pineapple lumps and bluff oysters. Keep the faith. See you next week.